Let's take a look at Ohio State versus Indiana and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and the subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to take a look at top 10 matchups between undefeated Ohio State and undefeated Indiana. Indiana sits atop the Big Ten East standings and really atop the Big Ten standings as they are 4-0 with Michael Penix Jr. and Ty Freifogel leading Tom Allen's team into historic waters. As a matter of fact, I want to start with just what Indiana has accomplished here for those of y'all that just haven't been paying attention and don't understand how good this Indiana football team is. We'll talk about whether or not they can challenge Ohio State in a second here, but just take stock of what they've been doing, man. This is actually a portion of Adam Rittenberg's story from their win against Michigan State, where they beat Michigan State in Michigan State 24-0. And after beating Michigan, Indiana is your Michigan State champ. After outlasting Penn State 36-35 in overtime to open the season, Indiana has won 3 consecutive Big Ten games by 15 points or more for the first time since 1988 and just the second time in team history. That's according to ESPN Stats and Information Research. The Hoosiers beat Michigan State on the road for the first time since 2001 and claimed the old brass spittoon for the first time since 2016. I swear, the Big Ten has more rivalry trophies than they have actual teams. Like, I swear I've seen Iowa and Minnesota play for like 8 trophies in like the last 12 games. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point here. Indiana has won 5 consecutive Big Ten games, stretching back to last season, and 9 of its past 11 league contests. The Hoosiers have won 5 of their past 6 Big Ten road games, their best stretch since 1967-68. Of course, IU is scheduled to play Ohio State on Saturday, November 21st. Also in here, right, like I was putting together my column for Fox Sports about Michigan and what they needed to do, which they didn't, beat Wisconsin. And one of the things that I came to find is Indiana has been such a bad football team for so long that we don't really know how to treat them now that they're pretty doggone good. They hadn't had like a winning season since 2007, like the first was 2008 they had one, and then like I'm looking at what Tom Allen has accomplished since taking over that program, and I don't think it's going to get enough credit. The way that people were talking about Matt Rule last year with Baylor is the way you should be talking about Tom Allen this year with Indiana. And by all accounts, people love him there, and he is an energetic dude. One of my favorite anecdotes that I learned from Holly Rowe, who was on the sideline for Indiana at Michigan State, is that this man has hurt himself several times celebrating with his players. He has had a gashed cheek from jumping into the face mask of one of his players after an interception. He has lost teeth because he's jumped into helmets celebrating with his players. He's picked up a black eye from celebrating with his players. And yesterday, his kid, Thomas Allen, was carted off with a leg injury. Don't know the severity of it. And he said that he'll give details if he finds out that his kid, Thomas, is out for the season. But that was cool in that his kid had a forced fumble, had 8 tackles on the season. And that's really, I think, what is understated about Indiana. They're good at defense. Like, they turned over Michigan State 4 times and basically forced Rocky Lombardi out of the game, where they had to bring in Peyton Thorne, and he wasn't really ready for it as a redshirt freshman. Jay Johnson's got a lot he needs to shore up. Number 1, taking care of the football. Number 2, running the football for Mel Tucker's offense, but his defense wasn't that much better. Still, Michael Penix Jr. is no Justin Fields. He threw 2 interceptions in the first half, and then I just kind of want to do a tale of the tape here because I always think those things are useful. I know that reading off stats is not the most inspiring thing in the world, but I think context here is important. So Michael Penix Jr. is averaging about 268 yards passing per game. He's completed just under 61% of his passes, 9 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. 3-to-1 ratio is pretty good. Now here's Justin Fields. Averaging 302.7 yards passing per game, has completed 86.7% of his passes with 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Matter of fact, I still love trotting this stat out there. He has thrown as many touchdown passes as he has incompletions in 3 games. And he is responsible for more touchdowns than he is incompletions this year. Master T has kind of sort of taken over that dominant number 1 running back role for them. He's averaging 70 yards a game, but about 15.7 yards per attempt with 4 touchdowns. I think that Trey Sermon is going to come on, mostly because I saw so much of him at Oklahoma. I know he's a good tailback. I also know that Ohio State's offensive line has not been stellar. So I expect those things to get worked out. And being able to use this as basically a de facto bye week because Maryland had to cancel the game helps you if you're Ohio State, right? You have a week of rest built in to make a charge at the rest of the season, to say nothing of who you're going to face in the Big Ten Championship if you get past Indiana. Northwestern looks like a sound football team. I still have reservations about them and Pat Fitzgerald's kids, but they get to play a good Wisconsin team this Saturday too, so we'll find out about them. And Garrett Wilson, averaging 114.7 yards receiving a game, 24 yards per catch, has 2 touchdowns. But on the other hand, you got Ty Freifogel, who's coming off of an 11 reception, 200-yard receiving performance against Michigan State, 106 receiving yards. He's averaging 6 yards per reception and 4 touchdown passes he's caught. You're also talking about Ohio State team that puts up points. 46.3 they're averaging a game to 34, basically, 33.8 for Indiana. And then you're looking at yards per game. It's not even close. Ohio State's putting up over 500, and Indiana's putting up 362. And then we talked about what the quarterbacks can do and what the offenses could do, but it's also about the defenses. This is a real opportunity for Kerry Combs and his secondary to show that they are as good as we thought they were. I mean, they want to call themselves best in America, then start playing like the best in America. Shaun Wade has not been playing like the first-round draft pick that we expected him to be. You're trying to run Jeff Hafley's scheme, and it doesn't seem to be working with the personnel that you have right now. I think having Pete Warner, Tuff Borland, and Baron Browning ought to make you one of the best linebacking corps in the nation, and yet I saw them give up 200 yards rushing to Nebraska to open the season. I think building more of your scheme and your packages around that front 7 that we all know is so good, Larry Johnson's defensive line, Tyreek Smith, Jonathan Cooper, is where you should be going with this. And if you got to play 2 high safeties, fine, do that. Get Josh Proctor back into the mix. Get Malik Hooker back into the mix. Get Sevyn Banks doing what Sevyn Banks does. I think there's lots of room for improvement for a number 3 team in the country. And now you get an opportunity to show that you've actually taken those strides in knocking off a top 10 undefeated Indiana team. I know this is not the game that everybody circled on their calendar in the preseason, but when you look at what Indiana has done and what we expected, quite literally, blue blood programs to do and what they haven't, you're talking about Penn State and Michigan being a combined 1-7, with Penn State being 0-4 and James Franklin being on the hot seat, along with Jim Harbaugh. This is a Jim Harbaugh who coached a team to a Super Bowl, but also a Jim Harbaugh that I pointed out hasn't won a conference championship in college since he was at San Diego in the Pioneer League. That's an FCS conference where they don't even award athletic scholarships. San Diego lords over the Pioneer League, but once they get to the playoffs, they get bounced. Didn't win a conference championship at Stanford. David Shaw did that, right, after Jim Harbaugh left for the NFL. And now we're trying to figure out, where does James Franklin go from here? And who might you go get? And I would also push into the pile that both of those coaches wanted to play football this year, Jim Harbaugh and James Franklin, but it feels like Ryan Day was the only guy that was really getting his team ready to play, along with Tom Allen and Pat Fitzgerald. Purdue is also a really good football team, and I like seeing them push Northwestern. We'll find out. But the line that I could find on this was 17.5 for Ohio State, 17.5 in your pocket against Michael Penix, who I think you could turn over, and a Stevie Scott that I think you can stop. I'll take that, right? I'll take those points. But I also would not be surprised if Indiana turns this into an absolute ball game. And that would be good for Ohio State. They need to get pushed. They need to get tested. And it doesn't look like they're going to have that opportunity before they get to the playoff or even the Big Ten championship, where Northwestern might be there. We'll see, right? Maybe Wisconsin makes a push because they're undefeated. They got to play more games. Again, lots of we'll see going on here, but I've already really started looking forward to this game 2 weeks ago, and I'm glad that it's on the calendar. Just hope that Indiana, Ohio State can keep the coronavirus stuff under control. Wear your mask, people. make sure that this game gets played, please, right? Like, please, because this last weekend, absolute trash. Hated it. Like, it was awful. So let's hope that we can get really good quarterback play, really good defenses, and see if we can't get ourselves a classic Big Ten game going on Saturday. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.